tell if they're not.
Okay, here we go. All right, it's 5:30. Okay, I call this meeting of the Northwest Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551, and now we will move to closed session. Okay, it is 6:30, and we're going to reconvene our regular meeting, starting with invocation and pledge. Dr. Warren?
All right, everybody please rise. Folks, good to see everybody. Thank you for coming. Good. Everybody had a great spring break, I hope. Let's start off. If you feel comfortable doing so, please pray with me. Our dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. And Lord, we just thank you for the opportunity to be here, doing your business. We ask that you be with our board members, just bring them the wisdom to do what we need them to do for our children. Lord, you also know we've got quite a few staff members, parents, students who are in need right now, and we just ask that you be with them through everything that they're dealing with. We ask that you bless this meeting. We ask that you all see us all safely home, and above all things else, Lord, we just ask that you give your love, your guidance, your wisdom, and your protection to our children. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Amen. All right, we have two very special guests from Cox Elementary School. Guys, y'all get on up there to the podium, please. And let's see, I asked McKenna if she would want me to introduce her, or did she like to introduce herself, and she unequivocally said, I will introduce myself. McKenna, please tell everybody who you are.
I'm McKenna Waters.
Good to see you. Anything else? You want to say anything about your school?
I really like my school because all the teachers are really caring, and I like because it has a lot of recess.
Good job, McKenna. And that's also a good job because your assistant principal is standing right beside you. So this is McKenna Waters, and then Jasmine and Daniel, are we in the audience? Just Daniel. Daniel, thank you for being here. So Jasmine is a McKenna is a third grader at Cox. Her favorite subjects are math and art. Math challenges me, and I love being challenged. I love art because I am able to express my feelings. Very good. McKenna has made a tremendous amount of growth in her academic subjects. She loves to participate in class and holds herself accountable for putting forth her best efforts. McKenna, thank you for being here. Thank you. There we go. Daniel, you got no personality there, don't you? And then we have Jaden Townsend. Wave at everybody, Jaden. Thank you for being here. Jacqueline, Jared, the nanny. Good to see you. Jaden's favorite subject are science. Good job, Jaden. Because I love learning about new things. I like to practice football. I love video games and like Fortnite. Jaden is very sensitive, sweet, and caring student. He loves to have exciting opportunities to shine. So, Jaden, thank you for being here. Okay, guys, if you will lead us in our pledge to the American flag, and then we'll do the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Now, Texas.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state under God, one indivisible.
Great job, guys. Just stay right there, and Mrs. Kopp's going to bring you a little present.
Okay, now we're moving on to recognitions. Dr. Warren?
All right, Mr. Cantu, are we ready?
We are ready, sir.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Warren. School Board Trustees, Dr. Warren, Ms. Kopp, if you would join us up front. When I call your name, if you don't mind, come up front. Northwest ISD's Communications Department won 5 awards from the Texas School Public Relations Association. The team earned 4 gold awards and 1 silver award across a variety of categories in the annual T-Spur Star Awards banquet. Anthony Tosi, if you would join us up front. Mr. Tosi, Communications Specialist, earned gold awards for a feature story and a newsletter. Anthony earned a gold award for his written feature story about creative media production, Academy students operating the AV experience at Northwest ISD Stadium, and he earned a 2nd gold award for the Source Staff Email newsletter.
So the photographer
And we have a couple more. Emily Conklin and Alyssa Edstrom earned a gold award for a video feature about the Foundation's Sketch Pals grant at Cox Elementary School, as well as a silver award for a marketing video about the Foundation. They are joined by Phil Beckman, our pie specialist, who received gold award in a holiday mailed publication sent to donors. Congratulations to all of our winners. Next, Seven Hills Elementary had the privilege of being selected for multiple student leadership roles at the Leader in Me Dallas Symposium last week. 2 of our Seven Hills leaders stood up in front of 500 people and delivered speeches about being a leader in me in school and about their leadership roles. At this time, I'd like to invite Seven Hills Principal Kim Blackburn to the podium and introduce 2 of our speakers tonight. Kim?
Good evening. I will say that our symposium event was actually in February, and symposium is one of the largest events for the Leader in Me, and it's an opportunity for other Leader in Me schools to synergize with each other, learn from and with each other, and also for prospective Leader in Me schools to be able to come together and learn why their campus should consider being a Leader in Me school. This year, the Dallas Symposium hosted 500 guests, and Seven Hills was selected to have 2 students deliver opening speeches at this event. We also had a student who sat on a panel where these 500 guests just on demand asked questions of students, and the students had to respond. And so at this time, I would like to recognize the students who participated at the Dallas Symposium and invite them, the 2 speech leaders, up to the front. Chloe Tyndall, Gage Anderson, and Luca Baker. The second day of the symposium event is an opportunity for Leader in Me schools to open their doors to approximately 50 guests and share our greatness with these guests. And we had 2 students who opened up our symposium event at the campus level with delivering speeches, and those students are here with us as well. It's very difficult to deliver speeches. Most adults are not comfortable doing this, and these students delivered speeches wrote them on their own and delivered them to a minimum of 50 guests. And so the 2 student speech leaders that were at our site visit event are Jet Blackburn and Cannon Ortman. All of these leaders are members of our Student Lighthouse team, and they represent the campus in multiple leadership opportunities, such as hosting or leading our campus leader rallies for the entire campus, giving tours and things like that. So at this time, I would like to for your listening pleasure, would like for our student speech leaders to give you a taste of their speeches. So at this time, we'll start with Gage Anderson.
Good evening. My name is Gage Anderson, and I'm in the 5th grade at Seven Hills Elementary. Welcome to the NISD board meeting. My name is Gage Anderson, and I'm in the 5th grade. Our school has been a Leader in Me school for 3 whole years. One of the things I love most about being a leader in my school is how it helps us make good choices. Kids use the 7 habits all the time, sometimes to fix problems and sometimes to stay out of trouble. They also help us in our learning. We are proactive and begin with the end in mind when we create our WIGs or our wildly important goals. I have to plan my action steps so I can reach my goal. This habit helps me focus on what's wildly important. It is fun when we meet our WIGs, we celebrate, and people celebrate with us. At Seven Hills, you don't feel like you're just a student. We are important, and we are a part of the school. For example, I'm a part of the Student Lighthouse team. We plan leadership assemblies, we have action teams, we help other kids represent our school in the community. We also get to show off our school. Student Lighthouse team will give tours and answer questions about the leader and me. The cool thing is, the adults ask our opinions, and we get to join their action teams. We are included in just about everything. We even get to teach lessons. The fact is, you come in Seven Hills one way, and you leave a completely different way. You leave a better you. Over the past 3 years, I have truly found my voice. I used to be kind of scared to talk in front of people because I thought I would mess up. Now, I want to do this kind of stuff, talk in front of people. I realize that I can make a difference in people's lives. I have found myself, and so have my classmates. The leader in me does this for everyone. The 7 habits follow me home, too. I synergize with my parents and my grandparents so I can do things at my church. I play the drum so I have to put first things first in practice. As for habit 7, sharpen the saw. Yeah, I do that too. The leader in me has taught me that I can do just about anything, and I can't wait to see what happens next. And whatever it is, I know I will be ready because of what I've learned at Seven Hills Elementary. So ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for some amazing speakers here tonight? Welcome to the NISD board meeting.
So Gage opened up the entire symposium event with that speech. He was the first person to speak at the entire event, so we were pretty proud of Gage. And then at this time, I'd like to invite Chloe Tyndall to the podium. She delivered a speech in the afternoon about leadership roles at Seven Hills.
When I was in 2nd grade, Seven Hills Elementary wasn't in the Leader in Me program. Seven Hills was just a regular elementary school. The teachers taught and the kids learned. When I started 3rd grade, Seven Hills became a Leader in Me school, and boy, have things changed. Now, 3 years into the program, our school has transformed into a different place where students are leading assemblies, planning Sharpen the Saw clubs, and being part of making our school better. My name is Chloe Tyndall, and I'm a 5th grader at Seven Hills Elementary. Because of the Leader in Me program, I am both a leader at school and at home. One of my leadership roles at school is being part of the Student Lighthouse team. I have been on Lighthouse team since it started last year. Being on Lighthouse team is a great way to develop your leadership skills. As members of this team, we have many important responsibilities. For instance, we lead assemblies. At these assemblies, students and Lighthouse team plan and make props for a funny skit that teach one of the 7 habits. These assemblies are 100% student-led. That's right, no help from the teachers. Another responsibility of our Lighthouse team is making a float for the homecoming parade. Each year, we synergize with Prairie View Elementary, another Leader in Me elementary school, to decorate the float. This year, we picked a grease theme. My friends and I worked after school and made a big cardboard milkshake and several records. As much as I love leading assemblies and working on the homecoming float, by far my favorite leadership role is my action team. Each member of the Student Lighthouse team applied to be part of an action team for Seven Hills Elementary. I picked school beautification because my sister and I both want to be interior designers when we grow up, so this action team would be perfect since we're pretty much decorating the school. When my group had a plan what we were going to do to beautify Seven Hills, we thought of putting plants around the school, but we didn't think that was enough. After more synergizing, we came up with an idea to make a rock painting Sharpen the Saw club that would paint rocks for a kindness rock garden. Our Sharpen the Saw clubs give students time each week to sharpen their own saw by choosing a club like slime, volleyball, sewing, and many more. Thanks to the Leader in Me program, I am not only a leader at school, but I'm a leader at home as well. This year I started doing my own laundry. My laundry gets done way faster because I don't have to wait on my mom. Each night I put first things first and make my lunch. Making my lunch at night is so much easier than making in the morning. I get to sleep for 20 extra minutes, plus now my mom has more time to drink her coffee since she is not a morning person. I have changed for the better. I'm a leader of leaders, and I know I'm an important part of Seven Hills. I look forward to bringing the 7 habits to middle school and to continue my journey as a leader. Being a leader is not just a choice for me anymore. It's who I am.
Okay, if y'all would go on up front, join Dr. Warren and Ms. Kopp. Let's get some photographs. At this time, we'd like to ask our student ambassador graduates, if you would, please line up here at the back of the room. Come on up. The NISD Student Ambassador Program is in its 3rd year and was created to establish leaders at NISD secondary campuses who are well-versed in knowledge of public education, information about Northwest ISD, and how to be an advocate for education in Texas. We owe special thanks to Emily Conklin, Stephanie Espinoza, and Kara Carter for their help with this group of student advocates. Students were selected by administrators at their campuses. At this time, I'd like to invite Ms. Carter to the podium to introduce our graduates.
Thank you. I am proud to be here to help recognize this group of students. It really is such a great program to be involved with because this group of students is so passionate about education and honestly really contacting their legislators when they find something that they're passionate about. How often do we talk about how important it is for adults to be involved? But if you would hear the passion that these students have, you would be so beyond impressed. I'm really excited to be able to share 2 student projects with you today before we introduce our graduates. So if I could have Sophia Romer, wouldn't mind stepping up here. One of the projects that they did for part of our student ambassador program is that they had the opportunity to write a letter to their legislators or create a visual or a video. So all of our students did a great job. We were only able to select a few to share with you guys tonight. And Sophia and her group created a letter to legislators with the input from her peers. So I'm excited for her to be able to share that with you guys.
Thank you for coming tonight, first of all. I'd like to share a little bit about what we did on our project. We wrote a letter to the legislators over one of the priorities. We chose one about STAR and how we shouldn't use just STAR to measure a student's success. We don't think that that should be the only thing to measure how far they've gone since the beginning of the year. So basically, to get our information, we used this Google form. We wrote some questions, and I'd like to let Stacy Petty talk about it since she did all the work on it for this part.
Well, hi. So is what we did. We made a Google form, and with the help, we sent it out to some students and some teachers and some principals. And it's what we did is that we selected some questions, and we do have the pie charts up there. And we asked for their honest opinion and what they thought about it. And so up there it says, do you think the STAR is effective
way to assess progress. And so over half of them, they said no. So just with that. And then with the other, I did add a other object, so they did add their other little opinions. And then with the other pie chart, it says, do you think this star is equally testable for every child? And over half of them also said no, and we proved that in our letter, in how like every child can think differently and they have their different opinions in all their different kind of ways. So that's what we have.
I'd like to add one thing also. All the different colors that you see in the pie chart are the responses from our other option. So basically what they all say is agreeing with the other people. So we concluded in all that actually 96% of them chose that same answer. So that was our project. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I could get Tess Childress to come up and share about her letter that she wrote.
Okay, hi, I'm Tess Childress, and so we wrote a letter to the legislatives about school safety. So in our society today, there are lots of active shooter threats that are taking action in schools, like more than recent years. So on February 14th, Stoneman Douglas High School was a victim of a school shooting. 17 students and teachers were killed due to the lack of security in the school. This sparked greater enforcement and funding to go into security and safety. As a student in Northwest ISD area, we feel that it is important to feel protected in schools. So by increasing funding for security, and making this priority, there will be beneficial decrease in worrisome of students' families as well as staff members. So for our project, we had an anonymous source stated, school security systems are just fine and well maintained, but most of the time the cause of school shootings is the parents not treating their kids like they're supposed to and not watching what they do. Sometimes school shootings revolve around the mentally unstable kid or the person bullied to where they can't take the abuse anymore. So we use this anonymous statement to help back up our letters to the legislative, and I hope you liked the presentation.
Thank you. I think their passion for funding and safety and accountability is something we can all agree with. So at this time, we'll recognize our student ambassadors. As I call your name, if you just want to go up front there. Jonah Hoffman. Zion Coates. Cammie Bradley. Allison Graham. Natalie Burston. McKenna Morgan. Cadence D. Masai Burks. Josh Drury. Noah Lottie. Jacob Strong. Trey Guerra. Sydney Rappert. We need to make another line. Tess Childress. Emma Kate White. Sophia Romer. Stacy Petty. And Fatu Sibi. Please join me in congratulating the student ambassadors for this year.
Great job, guys. Thank you.
And that's it for accommodations. Thank you, Dr. Warren.
I'm going to go in order because she has them numbered. So.
Okay.
Start. Okay, our next item on the agenda is public participation, and before I call your name, I have a statement that I need to read. Public participation is an opportunity for the public to address the board on any matter, whether or not it is on the agenda. The board may place reasonable restraints on the number, length, and frequency of presentation so long as it does not unfairly discriminate among speakers based on viewpoint. 30 minutes are allotted for public participation. People who wish to speak must sign up and complete a request to speak form before the meeting begins. Each presentation is limited to 3 minutes. Groups of more than 5 people shall appoint one person to speak for the group. Speakers should refrain from mentioning by name an employee or student about whom they are complaining. The board may not deliberate or take action on a presentation about an item not on the agenda. And our first speaker is Ms. Masters. If you would step to the podium and state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Tamara Masters. I live at 5141 Bayview Drive, Fort Worth, Texas, 76244.
Very good. Tamara, I'll tell you when you have about 30 seconds to go, and I'll raise my hand, and that's when you need to wrap up.
First of all, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I'm here representing the over 850 UEA members you have in Northwest ISD. Every year since 1992, UEA has published a salary comparison of over 30 districts in your area. This comparison has been a beneficial resource for school boards to know where they stand in our competitive market, and also for teachers and staff that need to make informative decisions based on positions within these districts. You have a copy of the latest salary comparison, and as you can see, the districts are reviewed at the 5-year intervals. Northwest continues to stay competitive and is ranked in the top 11. Congratulations. On years 0, 5, and 10, you've held steady at the current rating. At 15, moved up from 12th to 11th. At year 20, moved down 1 spot from 6th to 7th. Year 25, down 1 from 5th to 6th. And 30, moved up 2 from 9th to 7th. Yay for those veteran employees. As you plan for the future, it should be noted that for as little as $61 a person, your ranking could increase to 10th at the 15-year experience level. UEA would like to thank you for your competitive salary packages you currently offer your employees and staff in Northwest, and we hope that you can utilize this comparison to provide the best salary and benefits packages to your teachers and staff. Thank you for all you do, and thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of your UEA members. Thank you.
Good job, Pamela. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Victoria Gonzalez. Please state your name and address.
My name is Victoria Gonzalez. I live at 3509 Anchura Court, Fort Worth, Texas, 76137.
Very good. Victoria, remember when I hold up my hand, you got 30 seconds.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
My name is Victoria Gonzalez, and I'm a DECA state finalist for Eaton, the captain of the Eaton robotics team, who I've taken to state twice, the founder of the Eaton Girls Who Code Club, a CT ambassador for Northwest ISD, a second-place district finalist for computer science UIL, and a national Hispanic scholar. I have many other accomplishments under my belt, but unfortunately the biggest thing to note about all the accomplishments I have listed is that I have been able to accomplish all of this in only 3 consecutive semesters since moving to Eaton High School. I have only been at Eaton High School for 3 consecutive semesters, and because of this, I do not get to be recognized as graduation in the top 10 students. I have come so far just to be disregarded over something I have no control over. I have come to Eaton as an Indigenous student due to circumstances beyond my control. I have had to move between different family and friends now for over 5 years due to poor life decisions made by my parents. I did not choose to move to Eaton to gain a higher rank. If anything, I was already ranked 5 at my previous high school. I am one of the biggest representatives of this school district. I may have only been at Eaton for a short time, but I have managed to accomplish more than what most students accomplish in 4 consecutive years of being in a high school. Where did I find this structure to love learning in school? The answer to this question would be at Northwest ISD's very own elementary schools, which I attended from 1st to 5th grade. I have spent a combined total of 6.5 years in Northwest ISD, which is more than half of my 1st through 12th grade career. And because of this love of learning that I have gained at Northwest ISD, I've made through my junior and senior year. I am now a recipient of a 4-year full ride scholarship to Bryce University in Houston, Texas. On Friday, March 4th, I was denied the ability to receive my gold cord for graduation, even though my transcript says I'm clearly ranked 7 out of 523 seniors. This is because the district policy states that the district shall recognize at the graduation ceremony as graduates with high honors the students in the graduating class who have been continuously enrolled in the same district high school for the 2 school years immediately preceding graduation with the 10 highest class ranks, but fails to clearly define what exactly that means, what graduating with honors means. As a consequence of this, I have never been fully informed about what exactly I am excluded from according to policy. I get to find out as things occur. The policy does not specify exactly what graduation with honors means, and with further research, this term is never defined by the board. The reason I am here today is to plead my case in repeal of this policy. I, as well as future Northwest graduates, should not be punished for something that is beyond their control, such as moving due to a poor personal life. I am asking to be given the same graduation rights as someone who has been in the district for all of high school, the gold cord, the seat on the stage, the dinner, and the awards. I proudly represent this district. Won't you proudly represent me? Thank you for your time.
Victoria, wait a minute. You did a great job. First of all, congratulations on Rice.
Thank you.
Outstanding. Now, the board can't respond. As Mrs. Kopp explained, the board can't respond, but let me clarify. Are you asking the district, especially the administrative staff, to formally review the policies that govern this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I know I saw your building principal here, Mr. Blankenship.
Yes, sir.
He's a back row Baptist tonight. What I would recommend is that first thing in the morning that you go in and talk to Mr. Blankenship, and he will not only describe to you our formal appeal process. We call it a grievance process or appeal process. That's the process that we use when either students or parents or even staff want us to formally review these kind of things. he will take you through that. In fact, he'll probably even provide you with some of the paperwork that we'll need you to fill out to do that, and we can start that process.
Yes, sir. I had a meeting with him this morning, and I'm in the middle of starting that process right now.
All right, so if you will file that with him, we'll start that process.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your time.
Good job.
Okay, our next speaker is Amara, and I'm not going to attempt your last name. I'm sorry. I'll let you tell us at the podium.
Hi, I'm Amara Kwiatkowski, and my address is 13409 Quailview Drive, Hazlet, Texas. I'm actually here to speak for Tori as well. So I'm Amara Kwiatkowski, a junior at Eaton High School, and over the course of the past 7 months, I've had the honor of meeting and becoming friends with Victoria. She's become one of my greatest role models, mentoring me in all things robotics, recruiting me for her new Girls Who Code chapter at Eaton, and assisting me with English essays and being one of my greatest allies and fellow CTE ambassador. When she mentioned that the gold cord offered to seniors was not available to her because she had not been in attendance for 4 consecutive semesters, I was greatly alarmed and appalled. Tori deserves recognition for all of her accomplishments despite her background and factors she cannot control. As a junior, graduation and graduation cords seem too far in the future to worry about, yet these topics are right around the corner. What concerns me is the fact that if I was as academically successful as Tori, I would be able to purchase my gold cord next year regardless of the fact that she attended all years at elementary school in Northwest ISD while I only attended one. That was 5th grade. Not to mention that Tori was just as successful at her former high school. Maintaining GPA and class rank amid the stress of transferring academic environments is a feat within itself and should have no influence of representation of success. Discrimination on the basis of academic background has no place in the school district, as my peers and I have stated. Aside from speaking for my friend, this should not be an issue for any deserving student. Tori does not undeservingly rank 7th in her class and should be represented as, or be respected as all top 10 students are. I'm pushing the district to change how situations like this are treated, even if it means changing policy. This goes much further than just the graduation cord. Worthy students need to leave a legacy that is just as credible as they are. Thank you.
Great job. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, our next speaker is Jamie Jordan.
Okay, so I'm one of those adults that don't like to speak in front of people, but I'll do the best I can. Okay, my name is Jamie Jordan. I live at 14200 Tijuana Trail, Hazlet, Texas. I'm here on behalf of Victoria Gonzalez, more commonly referred to as Tori. When I discovered that the district is not going to recognize Tori for her academic standing of 7th in the district, I was rather shocked. I remember thinking how she's accomplished so much without the parental support that most kids get. I thought about how it's her teachers and academic environment that's been the only real stability she's had growing up. It's where she obtained the encouragement, and support that most children do get from their parents. She strives to be the best at everything that she does, and I think part of that may very well be due to her unfavorable life circumstances. As a way to validate that she does deserve the love and support of the people that have been more of a parental figure to her than her own. Tori did not choose to move back here to increase her academic standing. When where you live is based on what family member will take you in, it's not a choice at all. Regardless of that, her past achievements speak for themselves. The district should be extremely proud to recognize her for her achievements here. She is an embodied example of Northwest's vision of empowering learners and leaders to positively impact the world. She's accomplished more here in the time that she's been here than most do in their entirety. And she was able to accomplish all of this despite being shuffled abruptly from family member to family member, despite having to be a parent to her own mother for the short time she was in town, despite working as often as she can so that she can pay for her vehicle, her monthly car insurance, her clothes, and quite often her food. Yet even though she has to be very self-sufficient. I've witnessed several occasions where Tori has purchased items for other students when they couldn't afford it and offered tutoring for students that are struggling. While I understand the possible rationale for the 2-year requirement, I'm completely dumbfounded on how a student that has represented our district in such a positive manner would not be recognized for such achievement. Thank you.
To be so nervous, you did a great job.
Okay, our next speaker is Jet, I believe. Is that correct? Okay, will you state your name and address? Thank you.
Okay. My name is Jet Cooley. I live in 301 Cactus Drive. And I'm here to speak on behalf of Victoria Gonzalez to further her point as I feel the situation of her exceeds any policy you may invoke. I will start by reading a line directly from the policy that is restricting Victoria from being exempt from being included as an honor graduate. Students who have been continuously enrolled in the same district high school for the two school years, end quote. This specific part completely ignores the fact that there are always going to be students in bad situations and have consequences that are out of their control and yet struggle their way through it and out of it. Some may say they worked harder than others to achieve such goals. Victoria had to move out of her grandparents' house to live with her uncle and aunt due to her grandfather having a heart attack. Her uncle and aunt lived inside the Eaton High School district, far away from her current high school, forcing her to move schools. This couldn't be avoided, as I know Victoria would have loved to stay ranked 5 at her school and not drop to rank 7 at Eaton. Through this struggle, Victoria has been able to achieve a lot more than any normal student would have in her 3 semesters of being here at Eaton High School. She has established a professional and efficient community inside of the robotics hub, which I am a part of. Which also currently contains approximately 40 members. She has proven her skills as a programmer in UIL by qualifying for state in UIL computer science competition on her first year of participating in this competition. Finally, she is a perfect example of a woman in STEM and is represented as a CTE ambassador for Eaton High School. Now she's off to Rice University with a full-ride scholarship, yet she can't be recognized as an honor graduating student. I wish I had more time to tell you everything I know about Victoria, but unfortunately, I don't. I beg you to consider this topic and give this girl the recognition she deserves, and please acknowledge all of her accomplishments by just allowing her to call herself an honor graduate. Thank you.
Outstanding. Good job.
Moving to our next item on the agenda, the consent agenda.
Madam President.
Mr. Sproul.
I move to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Sproul, a second by Mr. Hastings. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor? 5-0.
Thank you, Board. And students, you are absolutely free to stay for the rest of the meeting, but if you want to excuse yourselves, we understand that as well. So you do whatever you need to do, especially if you have homework tonight. You're welcome. Thank you. All of you did a great job.
Okay, item 8, our discussion action items. A is naming of Executive Director of Elementary Education, Dr. Warren.
Board, as was explained to you, after a multi-step process, interviewing outstanding candidates who applied for the position, I very proudly bring to you the name Kim Beacon, who is our current principal of Cox Elementary School, as our new Executive Director for Elementary Education.
Madam President,
Dr. Simpson?
I move to approve Kim Beacon as Executive Director of Elementary Education as recommended by administration.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Simpson and a second by Mr. Sproles. Any discussion? All those in favor? 5-0.
Thank you, Board.
Okay, the next item B is attendance boundary adjustments. Dr. Warren?
Board, the information on the attendance boundary adjustments begin on page 32 with the actual presentation beginning on page 33 in your packet. Mr. McClure went over this with you a couple of weeks ago and did a really good job, and Tim did a really good job. I really appreciate the members of the committee. I don't know if we have any committee members here tonight, but they did an outstanding job with this. These are never easy decisions for committee members, community members to look into, but did a really good job. So I know you've had a couple of weeks to work on this, to look at this, and Tim is ready to answer any of your questions before my recommendation.
Oops. Mr. McClure, I wanted to thank you for looking up the additional information about how, I believe at the last presentation you indicated that for efficiency's sake, to really operate efficiently, we would need about 400 students to open the school. And in reviewing the numbers in the report, it doesn't look like we really will make that amount. And I thought that the second proposal was really worth looking into, and I appreciated your doing that, because I think one of the things that we're up against here is making sure that all of our facilities are operating as efficiently as possible, and I know it's tricky to anticipate where the growth is going to be, but it's also really important when we build a school with 850 students, and it will be 2025, 2026 before we'll even near capacity, but one of our older campuses and smaller campuses will be over capacity within the next 3 years. So I really guess I want to understand how we might have looked at that number a little differently, and I appreciate the process. So.
Sure. One thing I would just point out too is the information you received this time has the updated numbers. The numbers before, we deal in two different kind of playgrounds when we're dealing with this. The projections that Mr. Templeton will bring to you here in a little bit later, the demographic report, kind of operate in one software, and when we're doing boundary changes, they operate in a different software, and until we validate those into the true planning software, it makes it hard. So we went ahead and made some decisions and put those in here so we would have more valid numbers. And yes, it is a difficult process. I will point out that while the numbers show Lance opening at about 322 and then the following year being at 421, that would suggest that we're going to hit 400 most likely during that first school year at some point. Now, that could be the last month of the school year, but the growth is continuous in that area as well as throughout the entire district. And I think that's just an ongoing cycle. To answer your question, Dr. Simpson, is that it's hard in a geographic size of our district and the pockets of growth that we have, this ebb and flow of growth pockets coming up and not really getting too geographically dispersed and staying pretty concentrated to area. It starts to create these pockets and bubbles of areas that make a school expand real quickly or keep another one at a low area. And I think that's one of the things we struggle with every year when we go through this process, is having that discussion of going back to, if I go back to the values that were brought forth by the committee process as well as our process of that distance as being one of the top ones. In fact, through the community process, that was one of the big ones, was keep us close to our campuses as possible. And when you try to rationalize that out between decisions of where that growth's happening and where you need to pull from to balance campuses, that's a tough line to walk. I say our committee process did a good job this time, and I don't know that I have an exact answer for you on how the perfect way to do that is. without truly just throwing everything to the wind and saying we're just going to balance across the districts and that's just what it's going to be. When we bring that community in, which I think is very important, I know the board and our administration throughout the district is very heavily involved in our community engagement, and it's hard to try to get that equalization when you've got these pockets of growth happening. I know that probably doesn't answer your question, but I don't know how to answer the question when we see the spans of the district and the pockets of growth that we're experiencing.
I appreciate it. It is a guessing game. I really do appreciate that. But I do think, given kind of the place where we are now, as a fast growth district, and we can't anticipate the support that we need from the state, that it is important that we look at efficiency. I certainly want to think about distance. I want to think about communities staying together, but I think one of those factors really has to be operating our schools
Absolutely.
as efficiently as possible.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Discussion? Dr. Warren?
Board, I would recommend approval of the committee recommendation.
Madam President,
Mr. Sproles?
I move to approve the recommended attendance boundary adjustment as provided by the committee.
I have a motion by Mr. Sproles, a second by Mr. Hastings. Is there any other discussion before we vote? Mr. Sluter?
Madam President, I'm going to abstain because I'm working with a developer to do engineering work in some of these questionable areas, so I'll stay out of this one.
You can do that by the skin of your teeth. Thank you very much.
Okay. All those in favor? The recommendation? 3 to 1 to 1.
Thank you, Board. Good job, Tim. Thank you.
Okay. All right, our next item is the RFQ number B019-021-020-015, Construction Manager at Risk for Fine Arts Additions and Renovations at Pike Middle School, Medlin Middle School, and Chisholm Trail Middle School. Dr. Warren?
Board, this is the next challenge for Tim and Sarah and our crew for the 2017 bond to do, looking at equity across the district and what our newer buildings would have and what our older buildings would not have. So one of the things that the committee in the 2016 reported to make sure that we did have the equity, and a lot of this is the fine arts additions and renovations because all three of these schools have the same programs as our other newer middle schools. So that information starts on page 47 in your packet, and we are recommending Tim North Star Builders Group for all three schools, and I would recommend approval.
Madam President, I move to award RFQ number B019-021-02-015, Construction Manager at Risk for Fine Arts Additions and Renovations at Pike, Medlin, and Chisholm Trail Middle Schools to North Star Builders Group, LLC, and authorizing the superintendent or his designee to enter into contracts as recommended by the administration.
I have a motion by Mr. Sluter and a second by Mr. Hastings. Is there any other discussion or questions? All those in favor? Carries 5-0.
Thank you, Board.
Okay, our next item is a discussion item of the 2019-20 instructional material adoption. Dr. Warren?
Well, Board, Stephanie Espinosa was very excited to present this to you tonight, but she is down with the flu. And so we've got a great team together. Sonny, Brittany, are y'all going to lead out?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
so
we are.
Please do.
Yes. So I'm Sunny Johnson. I'm elementary language arts, and I'm going to introduce my friends here with me. So this is Brittany Bragg, secondary language arts. Veronica Law, language, ELL, and Amanda Piper McClure. She is our coordinator for textbooks, who has really helped us and guided us through this process. So we thank her. All right. So here is what our committees decided to do, and just some reminders from our last presentation. We are putting in new TEKS per the state next year for K through 8. 9 through 12 will be the following year, and that's for Spanish language arts and English language arts. So these resources that our teachers and our committees evaluated was based on the new TEKS. Just some reminders. These are the points to which our teachers evaluated the resources for adoption from the state. This is a rundown of who was on our committees. And after lots of evaluation and lots of looking and using and trying things out, this is what the committee of teachers voted on. So for elementary ELA, they're going to use, they've put up for adoption the Rigby readers from HMH, which will be used for guided reading instruction and to get books into kids' hands. Units of study for teaching phonics to go with the Readers and Writers Workshop, also under units of study. And then the added piece of the Patterns of Power book for grammar instruction. Spanish ELA chose Houghton Mifflin, the HMH resources for dual language classrooms. Secondary ELA chose Springboard. That is time for questions.
Well, I know how hard the process is when you have to look at all of these materials and really come to consensus. I'm curious about the length of this adoption.
Yeah, so it's 8 years from the state. So starting next year, we will have these resources in our teachers' hands for the next 8 years.
And as a part of that 8-year adoption, will these resources be updated? Will the professional development go along with them? Are we providing the professional development? But what's the support to really develop flexibility here in our growing district?
Yeah, so the resources in general, we get to refresh them for teachers based on growth and growth in classrooms. So just like the guided readers that we have currently, they've been in our teachers' hands for 10 years, now it's 8 years. And the professional development, some of the vendors provide professional development to our teachers based on new resources, and some of it we will provide from our department.
And board, that's a great question that Ann asked. I mean, that's what we've struggled with for a long time. Is just because TEA, to save money, I mean, that's to save money has increased the time length in between adoptions. And the thing for our teachers is they just need our teachers do understand, you know, the textbooks are not the Bible. They are resources. And, you know, we review the resources, they review the resources, and when we find better ways, when they find better ways, you know, we run with those. But that's something we've struggled with for a long time.
It is a challenge, I know. The other question I have, if I understand correctly, one of the options that's new is that you could have a per pupil funding and then the district would make the decision about resources. But I wasn't sure what that amount was or how flexible it is.
I'm going to have Amanda answer that because she knows more about the funding part of that.
I've just heard other districts talk about that. So
unfortunately, there's not a decided answer at this point in time. The instructional materials allotment is funded through the state for the permanent school fund. And that is something that is under scrutiny and under debate in our legislature right now. If we are lucky, we may find out by July what we have for our biennium. And I say if we're lucky because it is a hot topic right now. Typically, there is a per student allotment, and we as a district try to spend that to the best of our ability and maximize our resources for our students and getting them into the students' hands.
So that's basically an unknown. Is that what you're telling me?
It is an unknown. It is completely decided by the state board, the TEA, and our current legislature.
Dr. Simpson, I'll also add your question about refresh of materials that they have to last for 8 years. So many of the resources now have parts of them online. So there's digital downloads and things that teachers can use in the classroom so that if the paper copies get to the point that we need
access digital resources. Most of the things that we're looking at for adoption also has digital access to everything.
In that practice, then there would be upgrades probably, we would assume.
Yeah.
Board will be back to you the next board meeting with the results of their work, and we appreciate all the efforts in their work. Great job.
I do have a question before you leave, Ms. Johnson. Sorry. Your adoption rubric, I assume that there was some kind of checklist that you used or scoring sheet based on this adoption rubric?
Yes.
So was there anything that is shown here that was weighted heavier than any of the others?
On the rubric in general, let me go back here. So I will tell you that the standards alignment had more, like when we think about which of these weighed the most, I would think about which ones had more criteria that they were looking for. So it might say standards alignment, but there might have been 7 bullet points underneath it that they were viewing. So the standards alignment to the new state TEKS was one of the strongest pieces, and then the content for the content for language arts was the second strongest point. The other ones didn't have as many areas that we were evaluating in.
Thank you.
Great job.
Okay, now we're moving to reports. First one is demographic report. Dr. Warren?
Mr. Templeton, good to see you.
Good, you did my job.
I just cut down the report by 10 minutes.
Good evening, Board President, members of the Board, Superintendent Warren. It is my pleasure to be with you tonight. I will briefly touch on the economic conditions that we're seeing across the DFW region. We continue to be very fortunate. Dallas-Fort Worth continues to be one of the strongest cities in the country for job growth. The job growth rate as of December was 3.4%, which is 127,000 annual jobs that were created in 2018, and a majority of that is in the northern part of the Metroplex and along the 114 corridor, so we are experiencing very strong job growth in the Northwest region. The unemployment rates continue to be very low. In fact, the state's unemployment rate is at 3.6. The DFW area is at 3.3, and the city of Fort Worth is at 3.4. Anytime you're below 4%, you are fully employed, and it becomes a little bit of a challenge for the service industries, for transportation, food service, janitorial, even substitute teachers can be in shortage when we see the unemployment rate so low. The housing market is settled in at about 34, almost 34 and a half, 34,500 annual starts across the DFW region. I don't expect it's going to get much higher than that, so we have kind of reached a plateau for the housing market across the DFW region. We track home sales in 2 different ways. We do look at deed transactions, the sale of existing homes and of new homes. What we noticed back in 2010, about 26% of the home sales were what we would consider distressed property sales. That would be either foreclosures or real estate owned property. So in 2010 it was 26%, and in 2018 it has dropped down to less than 5%. That's because we have a very strong and a very hot housing market, so when families are distressed by either loss of job or health reasons, they can sell their homes very quickly, which then avoids the foreclosure or the bank-owned sales that we're seeing. And one of the things that we are watching very closely is the change in prices. So back in 2010, the average price for a new home was $214,000. In 2018, it has risen to $331,000 is the average price for a new home. We've seen that kind of escalation in home prices all across the country. This is a phenomenon that is starting to slow just a little bit. You'll notice in Northwest, back in 2016, the average price was $343,000, $328,000, $331,000. So it is kind of settling in at just over $300,000. The average price for a sale of an existing home has risen about $113,000. In 2010, it was $191,000, and in 2018, the average sales price for an existing home is $304,000. So there again, it's a little bit challenging for the younger families due to the escalation in the home prices. Now, we are taking this sales data, the deed transaction data, we are geocoding it. One of the things that we're going to be doing over time now is looking to see at regeneration. So home sales, we're studying the effects of the increase in price on existing homes. Is that going to cause a change in the age of the families due to the prices getting so high? So this is just data that we're just showing you, but it's going to be very useful for us each year as we geocode your students and then match that up to the home sales so we can then begin to look at how the district is changing, not only with new home sales, but also as we look at the existing home sales as well. Now, when a new home sells, it is an additional family to the school district when there's a new home. When there's an existing home sale, it's the mobility that we're trying to study to see how the changing in families is taking place due to the existing home sales. In terms of new home construction, annual closings, Northwest ISD is ranked 4th in the DFW Metroplex. What you'll notice is Frisco has dropped another notch, so they're now 3rd in the DFW region based on annual closings. I predict this time next year they could be down to 4th or 5th. So Frisco is starting to run out of land and they're running out of vacant developed lots. Northwest ISD has 2,931 vacant developed lots. You have 31,779 futures, and you have the highest amount of future lot supply in the DFW region. There again, that's just showing us that you're going to be building 1,800 to 1,900 homes a year for the foreseeable future. You've got plenty of land, plenty of lots, and the area economy is strong enough to keep driving that amount of home activity. When we look specifically at the fourth quarter, we started 407 homes during the fourth quarter. That was a very good quarter. We started 1,872 homes for the whole year of 2018. That's the highest amount that we've had going all the way back to 2007. So very strong year for starts. Our closing number was 1,856. We do anticipate that you're going to build about another 1,800 to 1,900 homes again in 2019. Now here's a map of your elementary attendance zones. This does include the new zones that were just approved just a few minutes earlier. We've mapped your top 10 most active subdivisions. And the top 10 account for about 77% of all of the single-family activity can be found in the top 10. Your most active right now is Oak Creek Trails at Champion Circle. They closed 238 homes during the last 12 months. They've got 173 vacant developed lots and about 325 futures. You'll notice those red elementary zones are building more than 225 homes per year. That would be Lance, Hatfield, and Curtis. So even though that Lance number is a little lower in terms of its opening enrollment at just under 400, it is one of your fastest growing zones, and it will likely grow at a very strong rate with the new housing that's taking place in Harvest, Canyon Falls. There are some future developments that will be coming online in just the next few months as well. This next map is showing you where the vacant developed lot supply is strongest. Those red elementary zones have more than 300 vacant developed lots. That would be Lance, Justin, Haslett, and the Schluter elementary zones. They have the highest concentration of vacant developed lots. We've mapped your top 10 most active subdivisions based on vacant developed lots. And you'll notice in the top 10, we have 2,040 vacant developed lots. That represents about 70% of all of the vacant developed lots are found in those top 10. And this next slide is looking at the future lot supply. Futures are preliminary platted developments. They're future phases of existing developments, but it does give us a good indication of the lots that are in development that will be coming to your school district. And this is where, we'll mention, of course, Sendera Ranch has 3,587. It's been an active subdivision for several years. But now we've also got Pecan Square, which is a Hillwood development, so a very strong developer. Once they get the lots developed, it'll have a very strong activity. There's 3,425 future lots in the Pecan Square, and then you've got Bluebonnet Ranch, 3,300. Keep in mind, about 1,700 lots will fill up an elementary school. So that's almost an elementary, a little more than an elementary in each of those future master plan communities. This is a table just looking at the activity of the single family based on your elementary attendance zones. You have 8 elementary zones that are building almost or right at 100 or a little bit more than 100 homes per zone. 8 zones. Nance is right at 99, but then you've got Curtis with 471, Lance with 394, Hatfield 214, so very strong activity scattered throughout several elementary attendance zones. This is the 30,000-foot picture of the school district, and those green are your active developments. The yellow are the futures. When you see a red outline, that's where we're indicating where development of future lots is taking place. You've got about 4,100 lots that are in development. So that's just another indication that the developers are going to be continuing to deliver to help maintain that 1,800 to 1,900 pace per year. I'll just touch on some of the highlights of some of the newer developments that we're tracking. Fairview Meadows, 380 future lots. The preliminary plat for Phase 1 with 117 lots. And then there's 142 acres that were approved in January of 18. The Falcon Ridge is 135 future lots. The groundwork is underway on all the lots with street paving taking place. There should be homes starting in either March or April of 2019. They'll be building about 30 to 40 homes per year. Constellation Lake, 58 future lots. The preliminary plat for the 58 lots on 723 acres, so it's a larger lot development. Most of the lots do have frontage on Sam Reynolds Road. Here's some multifamily activity that we're tracking. Alta Champions Circle, final plat filed in February of 2019 for 285 apartment complex units. First units leasing by late 2020. And then grade of apartments, approximately 700 multifamily units. We do expect those to be market rate apartments, which would have a little bit lower yield of students. Chadwick Apartments, 264 units are complete and leasing. The current yield is 0.246 students per unit. Phase 2 with 249 units is under construction, and future Phase 3 is planned with about 188 units. And then we've got the Alliance Apartments down just a little bit further south of Hughes Elementary School. Alliance Apartments there's about 2 multifamily sites on about 35 acres, which could result in somewhere between 580 and 650 multifamily units, just north of 170 there. And then I'll touch just on 17 Lakes, single-family development. The final section should be delivered during the fourth quarter of this past 2018 for 244 lots, building about 75 to 100 homes per year, and that price range is $345 to $465. The current yield is 0.63 students per house. Over along 287, we've got Wellington, which is about 1,679 total lots. There is approximately 1,400 units of multifamily in those 2 sections. One of those is along 287. And don't have any timelines on those yet, but it does represent about 1,400 units. They should be building about 200 homes a year, 200 single-family homes a year in Wellington. We've got Willow Ridge, just south of Sluter Elementary, 846 total lots. The groundwork is underway on the final 203 lots. They're building about 100 homes per year. They're yielding 1.03 students per house. Keep in mind, it's our average for most of our clients is yielding between 0.6 and 0.7. So this area is yielding a little bit higher than what we see. Some of it is the location to the schools. So the school locations are definitely driving that a little bit higher yields because you've got elementary, middle, high school all right there in just close proximity to those neighborhoods. Just to the east of 287, we've got North Glen, 297 total lots, phase 1 with 85 lots delivered with 6 homes under construction. A little bit higher price point there, $530 to $650. And then there's a little section that's just on the north side of 287. That's the Van Tract. That's what we're calling it, Van Tract Apartments. It's planned for about 468 units. And I just touched on the highlights. We do have the details of all the active subdivisions. Right now, we're forecasting for next fall the enrollment to be at 25,234 students, which is growth of about 4.6%, 1,118 additional students from the fall of 2018. That would put your 5-year growth rate at 6,715 additional students. That'll put the enrollment in 2023 at 30,831. 10-year enrollment growth could be 13,699 students, which will put your enrollment at 37,815 students. Here's what it looks like at the campus level. It does include the opening of Lance Elementary. It does have the effect of dropping the enrollment a little bit at Justin and at Roanoke Elementaries. And you'll notice by 2021, we will have about 13,400 students in our elementary campuses. We're growing between 500 to 700 elementary students per year. At the secondary level, the largest middle school next year will be Adams Middle School with 1,302 students. And by 2022, we'll have 2 of those middle schools that'll be over 5% over capacity, and then Medlin Middle School will be within about 5%. At the high school level, we've got total high school enrollment at about 8,600 students by 2022. I'll summarize and go back and answer questions. Well, the Fort Worth economy is very strong. The unemployment rate is at 3.5%. Northwest ISD started and closed more than 1,800 new homes in 2018. That's the most annual starts and closings since 2007. Even with the average existing home sale price within Northwest ISD rising nearly 60%, the number of existing home sales is up again in 2018. So the housing market is continuing to perform at a very high rate. Nance Elementary Zone has the highest and the largest increase in existing home sales during the last 5 years. The future Lance Elementary Zone had the second most annual starts and closings in the district, and Northwest ISD can expect an increase of about 6,700 students during the next 5 years, and that'll put your enrollment at 30,831. And in 10 years, our enrollment will likely be about 37,815 students. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Templeton, on the 10-year forecast page where you have it by grade level, something that stuck out to me is on that 2021 year, the growth is 1,400 students. And years past leading up to that, it's been around 1,000, 1,100 on average. And that just took me by surprise. But then when I went back and looked at previous years, you've had that forecast going forward. So what's going on in that year that there's going to be such a big jump?
Well, it's the combination of, when we have new homes that are occupied, it takes them about 5 to 7 years after all those homes are occupied. The growth swells over time. So you have 100 homes that are occupied that are new homes this year, and you'll get 50 kids, 60 kids in day one. That same 100 homes in 5 years is producing 80 to 90 kids. And so it's the swell of the existing population, that young population that hasn't had their kids in school yet, that are coming up. And so it's the swell of the young grades coming up. Another way to look at it, this might be a little easier. The 12th grade class is 1,572. The kindergarten class is almost 1,800. So we're growing 300 kids just by rolling up the kids. So in this next few years, we're going to keep building 1,900, and then you compound that with the wave that's rolling up into your campuses. That's what's causing that number to jump up to 14 to almost 1,500 kids, is we've got that surge at the younger grades moving up, as well as continuing to build 1,800 to 1,900 homes.
No, and that makes sense, because I saw that at Granger, in that the subdivisions around there. That's exactly the same thing that happened there. So
exactly. I used to live in that neighborhood. Saratoga. Yeah. And even after it was occupied, there was still swelling of growth. Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. Great job as usual.
Thank you.
Okay, our next report is the 2018-19 Parent Survey. Dr. Warren.
You sure? Okay. Board, I'm sorry I am a very poor substitute for Emily. Please continue to keep her mom in your thoughts and your prayers, please. But I'm just very quickly, I know you looked through this. She and her staff did a great job. And remember, we saved, I can't remember what the final number was, but we saved a lot of money this year by bringing the survey in-house. We had Emily's team do this rather than contract out with the service center and doing this, and they did a phenomenal job. And just, looking at all the highlights and going through there, let me get you to the actual data. Looking at the different categories, the climate, the communications, safe and orderly schools, instructional programs, and support services, if you run through those numbers, looking at parents, and this was the parent survey, between the parents who agreed with these statements or strongly agreed, we have a phenomenal amount of success just based on this survey of parents feeling that we're taking care of business in those areas. So most of the agreement is within the 80 to 90% range. Some of them are even in the 90% range. And again, I won't read this to you, but we got some incredibly good data from this, especially looking at this slide about just understanding how our parents like to receive their messaging and do that. And Emily and her team will take this, and the principals will take this and actually pattern our communications around the needs of our parents. And I think that's a very telling sign of our district being as parent-friendly as we can be, because, of course, most of us, including y'all, are parents, grandparents, and we really try to be as parent-friendly as we can. So next steps with all the data that we're looking at, we are going to take some of those, even though we have incredibly high numbers in the positive range, we are going to dissect those numbers where parents disagreed with us or strongly disagreed with us and look to see what we can do better. Principals, Rob has already given us some great feedback to our building principals using this in their needs assessment, using this for next year's campus improvement plans. We'll use this for our next district improvement plan to be able to go through and do that. And so again, I appreciate Emily and the crew doing this, and any questions that you have on the results.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On the budget and operations slide, it shows that 43% of our population don't understand that we send money back to the state. How can we improve, so we can get that up to 100%?
That's a great question, Ron. I actually went back and looked at, we presented an entire Facebook Live. The most effective way that we found to reach parents of those Facebook Live presentations, and I went back to the one that John and I produced a program, and I gave the program about just our budget issues, about Chapter 41 issues, and over 4,000 people have downloaded it, which is an incredible number. Looking at when we do town hall meetings, we might get 15 to 20 people to show up. It's just that we've got to come up with a better way to really, again, kind of taking us through and being able to explain what the new system is going to look like, which we're about to talk about in just a second, and how we better communicate the needs of that, because that was kind of a telltale that as good a job as I think that we do in reaching probably a more majority of parents in a lot of school districts. We still have, thousands and thousands and thousands who don't understand that yet. So your answer is to be determined. We're going to look at that, and when we start learning the new system, whatever that new system is, we've really got to probably use a combination of things to really get to them and be able to do that.
I noticed one other decrease was the food service. Is there a reason for that, or do we know why?
Well, it was interesting because we did have a drop of about 11 percentage points, John, in Aramark services, and I know John is going to do that. And we also had an increase of 10% on our bus services, which we were very happy to see that with all the issues that we were doing that. We'll bring Aramark has done a really good job. We have absolutely no issues with them. I think we're actually going to bring you the next renewal of their contract next board meeting to be able to do that. But John and the crew will sit down there and go over when we look at these final results. We'll go over each department with their results, and we'll see where we think what could have turned off, whether it be kids or parents in that area, to be able to do that, and we'll look into that. John, any off the top of your head comments on that one?
Well, the off the top of the head comment is it's kind of surprising because they've expanded offerings and had quite a bit of success at that. So we didn't raise meal prices, and we started a summer feeding program, and so that is a bit of a puzzlement, to be honest. So we'll look into it, but I really don't know how to answer that at this point. But we will look into it.
Yeah, I was really surprised to see that too, because like you say, on Facebook, they post what they're serving, and sometimes I wish they posted the day before, because I'd like to go up because some of it looks pretty good.
Yeah.
And so I just don't know if there's no more green hot dogs.
It doesn't look good. It actually tastes good. And in all seriousness, they went to some expanded entrees because people complained about portion size and things like that. Fresh cooked at the high schools. Now, of course, this came in after the survey, but they put in Papa John's Pizza at middle school, so they've been on a continuous basis of trying to upgrade food service.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we've all, since the beginning of time, we've always complained about school food, if that's just a continuation.
Well, it's tradition, and as an Aggie, I can respect it.
Right. and Dr. Warren, on the communication, one thing I want to say, I like how y'all are reaching out outside of Twitter, because I've joked in the past that within Northwest ISD, y'all love to talk to each other via Twitter, but you can see it's one of the lowest ones that parents get their information from. So with the Facebook Live or whatever, so the communication department and with you, I really appreciate that.
Well, and I'm glad you said that. In Emily, and I'll talk good about her since she's not here, but she really, she puts her mother eyes on it. She puts her professional eyes on it. She really does try to brainstorm with her staff about how to best reach the most people that we can. So there are your key points. And again, one of the ones I was very most proud of because we've had an emphasis in this is the 94% feel their child is safe at school. I want to get the other 6%, of course, to try to get them in, but I was very pleased to see that. So those are your next steps. You saw this on your slides. Those are our next steps, and we will start reviewing these, and again, we're going to try to internalize them to actually make them those numbers that we do feel low, like Aramark. We're going to try to do our best to internalize that and look for ways for improvement. You're welcome.
Our next report is Budget Process Update Report. Dr. Warren?
All right, board, here is your, each meeting, if you remember our schedule, each meeting you're going to get a report on our budget. Kim is going to come up and going to give you the first staffing report. And again, we did have some number changes. We just talked about it. Like at Lance, we had some number fluctuations, and I want to make sure that you know how HR is working with the instructional staff to make sure that we adjust our numbers appropriately. And Dr. Simpson made a great example of making sure we run efficiently to making sure that we're running as efficiently as possible. John has some really interesting news. He's going to go over House Bill 3 as we interpret HB3 with you, and then I'll finish up with a legislative update. Parker?
Thank you. All right, I'm back with an update with staffing. One thing that we have learned through this is I have a sticky note that stays on my desk now. It says staffing is fluid. So as our numbers of students change, so do our needs at the different campuses. And every time that we receive updates from Mr. Templeton, we do look at those and make those adjustments as needed. Some of the considerations for this report today, of course, with the opening of Lance Thompson and then the approved boundary changes that we have now, we're thankful for that. And then, of course, the updated enrollment projections. We had received updated projections the day of the board meeting the last time we met, and so we've had some time to dig in there and make some adjustments. So this is just a very simple slide showing where we did make those adjustments based on the changes in enrollment. We had originally planned for Lance Thompson to open with around 400 students, where, as you know, it's coming in around 322. So that did impact the number of teachers that campus needs and the number of special education support staff that campus needs. So we have made those changes there. Roanoke Elementary, and if you look at the bottom line there, Justin Elementary, both of those campuses are impacted by the boundary changes, and so we're having to do some reallocation of staff at those, and so you can see where that's noted as well. Pleased to share that all of our teachers at Justin have been reallocated, and about half at Roanoke. So those principals are already working hard, helping us get those teachers placed in places within our district. One thing you may notice at Roanoke, their enrollment is dropping below our staffing matrix for them to no longer have a second PE art music teacher. So those are surplus positions that are being reallocated, and one of those already has been, and I expect a second one to be reallocated this week. And then, of course, there were some minor adjustments with Curtis and Hazlitt. And then that does have a financial impact where we are approximately $900,000 less with staffing costs than we were the last time we met. So that's positive as well. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. All right. Thank you.
Then we go into the legislative update for the 86th legislature. On March the 5th, Chairman Huberty filed House Bill 3 in the Public Education Committee that he chairs. And then I want you to notice that the Speaker Bonham conducted a press conference, and Huberty and dozens of bill supporters from the House were there. So this has a lot of power within the House. This is highly endorsed and is going to go through. The Senate's budget offers $3.7 billion for teacher pay raises, and that's of course, everybody's going to get $5,000 more thing that's going around the state. That's not in the House bill. Now, Senator Taylor in the Senate filed Senate Bill 4, which has many of the aspects in it that are in House Bill 3. However, his bill has a lot of holes in it, whereas House Bill 3 will have very specific numbers. His basically says something like, we're going to modify the basic allotment, blank, and many things like that. So Senate Bill 4 could be tied to House Bill 3 ultimately, but then they would probably have to drop the money that's in for the $5,000 teacher raise in order to be able to pay for that, because there aren't the funds to pay for both House Bill 3 and the Senate Bill teacher raise. So, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of enthusiasm for the teacher pay raise in the House bill at any rate. So it's going to be a lot of stuff going back and forth. I would also caution that in the previous session, Huberty introduced a less complex bill that was never reconciled to any Senate action, and 2 years before that, Senator Aycock tried to do the same thing and introduced and passed a House finance bill that was never reconciled to the Senate. It seems to be more enthusiasm in the Senate this time for school finance, but they've tied up a bunch of their available funds in property tax relief and teacher pay raises, and there's no way they're going to be able to accommodate House Bill 3 unless they rearrange their priorities in the Senate. So this will have to all be monitored very carefully to see if and how it all goes forward. Essentially, the committee met on March the 12th, had an 11.5-hour hearing, and at that hearing, Chairman Huberty mentioned that the bill has a lot of issues that need to be resolved. He knows it's a work in progress, and so what's being presented tonight is not going to be the final bill. It's not all wrapped up in a bow, but it's definitely being modified as we go forward. Now, his goal is for it to be on the House floor by early April, so it's progressing fairly quickly. The estimated 2-year net impact to the general revenue budget for the state of Texas coming from the Legislative Budget Board, which is required to produce fiscal notes, is $9.3 billion. So that's a little over $4.5 billion a year. And that's why I'm saying that the Senate can't do all three things that are on their plate. It's either going to have to go with this one or there's going to be conflict of some sort. The TASBO pipeline, Texas Association of School Business Officials, which the district is a member of, contracts with Moak and Casey to do modeling, and so they have modeled the bill. They caution that the bill is long and creates many changes to the education code, which we're going to not go through in detail, but I want you just to see the breadth of the changes, just how this is the most major rewrite of state finance since, 20 years at least. The bill is long. There's a lot of places where it's unclear, and that's why even Huberty acknowledges that, and they're going to have to go through and define a lot of things. And so there's a lot of assumptions and just downright they can't model this in the bill at this point. So essentially there's Tier 1 and there's Tier 2, and then there's recapture and some other things. Essentially they're changing the regular program to a basic allotment of $6,000, which is $890 more. This grabbed a lot of headlines. However, they're dropping the cost of education index, so for most districts, you can pretty much take that $890 increase and cut it in half in terms of true available money. But still, it's more money and it's a simpler formula. The cost of education index is probably at least 25 years, if not, no, it's got to be more than 30 years old now that I think about it. And has never been reset. It was supposed to account for disparities in cost between, say, rural and urban and South Texas and North Texas districts, etc. But it's just a stay-at-it old, out-of-date formula. So they just dropped it and just go straight to the basic allotment. There's adjustments to the small and mid-sized districts, which doesn't affect us. And then they get into all these special population groups, and it's kind of the right hand's giving and the left hand is taking. They added dyslexia allotment. They have a very complicated scheme on compensatory education allotment that I don't think they can do. It's literally broken on census tracts. Then they take the bilingual allotment and they add to it for limited English in dual language programs. So that's a new allotment. One of the things that they did in law was strike down all the required spending within the allotments. For example, in some allotments, you can charge the teacher to that allotment. But in the bilingual allotment, for example, you cannot. So the question is if they take it out of law, does that mean it gives you more flexibility at the local level? Or does that mean that the people at TEA will immediately get to work writing regulations that will restrict you as opposed to laws that will restrict you? So that's one of those kind of great unknowns. Yes, they've changed it. They've freed it up, maybe. And you just we'll have to see how this bill flows through the system, including what happens when it gets to TEA. They extended the career and technology allotment to grades 6 through 8. They added an early reading allotment, but talking about the hand that takes away, they repealed the high school allotment, which we use for AVID funding and things like that, and they repealed the gifted and talented allotment as well. They modified the transportation allotment to be funded with a single mileage reimbursement rate instead of a linear density is what they use, which is a very complex formula, but they didn't set the exact amount that they're going to pay per mile in the appropriations bill. So this is where you get into that guesswork area. They did raise the instructional facilities allotment to $100 million. It has been chronically underfunded and is typically prorated because there are not adequate funds in the appropriation. And as a district that's always building new facilities, this is a source of funding for us. This bunch I'm going to let Kim Cayley work through. There's the education salary transition allotment, the education effectiveness allotment. Is anyone here old enough to remember Career Ladder? Yeah, wasn't that good fun? College preparation, assessment reimbursement, and certification of examination reimbursements. These features were not modeled by Moak and Casey because there's a lot of to be determined in that. They also are going to compress the tax rate. And for example, by that, remember back in the days of West Orange Cove lawsuit, the M&O tax rate used to be $1.50 and was compressed down to $1. Now they're talking about compressing it down to 96 cents. It's not a lot of tax relief, but that's what they're talking about doing. Now here's a key thing for this district. The comptroller values for the preceding year are used in House Bill 3. The comptroller values for the current year are used in Senate Bill 4. The difference is that essentially as a district that's adding property value, if you can get a year that's not being recaptured, that's some free money to the district. And so it's very good for Northwest ISD to go with the delay or the lag money as it's called. The Equity Center, which is a set of school districts that don't have a lot of property growth, almost have a holy crusade to make sure that we don't get that money. And that's what you're seeing in Senate Bill 4. So even if they were to come up and agree on a lot of different things, that would be one of those issues that would have to be resolved in conference committee that's very important to this school district. The Tier 2, they changed the golden pennies. They used to be tied, they are currently tied to the Austin yield, which is much higher. So they're going to lower that down to the basic allotment for 160%, but they are increasing the pennies from 6 to 8 in this bill. And then the copper pennies are being lowered down to 80% of the basic allotment, and they are subject to recapture. Chapter 41 recapture is totally reworked. Instead of being based, actually it's not even going to be Chapter 41. It's going to be parts of Chapter 41 and Chapter 42 are going to become 48 and 49. And so everybody will be talking a whole new language. But it's the same thought that they're taking the money. In this case, though, what they're going to do is, instead of having a wealth per student, they're going to go to a total allowable revenue. And so if you collect more property taxes than your total allowable revenue under this formula system, then you rebate that extra or above the amount. As opposed to doing it on a property wealth basis, it's going to be done on a revenue calculation basis. TREs, this one could be really interesting too. If the elections are moved to November, this is going to drive the Denton County Tax Assessor Collector's Office a bit nuts, to be honest, because the problem they're going to have is they got to send out tax bills. So here we are having an election in November as to whether or not what's the tax rate going to be on the tax bill that they've got to send out by the early December in order to get it going. They'll probably be able to make it work, but it's going to put a lot of pressure on them to get that done on a timely basis. So what does it all mean at this point in time with all the assumptions and guesswork that's in the modeling that Moak and Casey has done? Essentially, our M&O taxes will drop by $7.5 million because of the compression. Since the tax rate's being lowered, we'll collect less property taxes. So that's a bad thing. On the other hand, the recapture will be eliminated, so that's a good thing. But then the state formula aid will actually go down a bit. So where we really kind of fall out in this whole thing, is we come out about $15 million ahead. What we're losing in tax collections and state formula aid, we're offsetting and gaining some on the way that recapture is being totally reworked. So this bill is favorable to the district from the recapture standpoint, less favorable on the taxes and the formula aid, but the recapture is where the big money is, and so at this point it's a good bill for us. We'll just have to continue to monitor it as we go forward. And I'll turn this over to Dr. Warren. I'm sorry, are there any questions on House Bill 3? It's a 186-page bill, and it's not easy. So the point I was trying to make is it's a favorable bill, and it's a complex bill that completely rewrites the education code.
Can we get copies of these slides, because it wasn't in our packet?
Absolutely.
Okay.
This all happened over spring break,
Okay.
so we just developed.
You'll get all of this.
Okay.
Board, just to summarize, if you are in communication with our legislators, if you are sending them frequent emails, which I hope you are, the first stance that we have on House Bill 3, it is favorable. That is exactly what I'm going to talk to I've talked to one legislator today. I'll talk to all 8 of them by the end of the week. That the first, and John is completely right, there are a lot of things in House Bill 3 that we just don't know yet because they haven't worked out the details yet. But at first glance, the general premise is it would do a lot of positive things for the district, especially on the recapture side. So that's where we would gain most of our money back. And then we are going to continue just to push our priorities. We're going to keep talking about testing and accountability, school finance, school safety, and transportation. And we're going to do that. I'm going to be in Austin 2 days next week. I've got a conference for a day and a half, and then I'll be at the Capitol for the rest of the other half a day. And again, just keep pushing what we think is appropriate for that. But have no idea yet what the Senate bill is going to look like. They're being very close-fisted on letting details out about the Senate bill. So when Chairman Taylor decides to roll all that out, between John and Brian and Moat Casey, they will do the analysis, and we'll do the same thing with you that we did with House Bill 3. We'll do the same thing and go over the Senate side. And then it's your guess is as good as mine what the final version will look like.
Dr. Warren, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Regarding the transportation allotment, since we don't really know, it's not defined enough to determine pros or cons, that $15 million that we're talking about in the good, could that increase with the transportation allotment?
It could be better, it could be worse. Now, what we think, as John said, because they're going away from linear density and actually going to pay us by mileage, we think it will be better, depending on what they set that rate at. But it's a simpler way of doing things than that complicated formula. And of course, we drive so many more miles than a lot of the area districts around us. So we're thinking it could be a very positive thing. So that 15 point, it's about a $16 million swing, positive swing for us. We're not going to get emotional one way or the other right now. We've just got to stay the course and keep communicating with the legislators about what we see from the numbers now.
And I know you may not know this, but I was just thinking, if they have moved away from the gifted and talented allotment and the high school allotment, how much would that be roughly? Because we would have to have gifted and talented.
Oh, we would. And from the formulas that they're using, it would just give us more. It would give us more power to use that, and more discretion to do that. Our gifted, and we are very proud of our gifted and talented programs, and we would fully fund that, and maybe hopefully a little bit more. But just the per pupil amount would go away, and we would get money from those other areas. Just like John said, it's give and take.
Right.
What we would have to do a really good job, and the executive team have been doing a phenomenal job of meeting with every executive director of the district to really truly understand both next year's needs and for the next 3 to 4 years, to really make sure we don't miss anything, that if they don't specifically give us a per pupil allotment, that we appropriately fund it internally.
All right, our next item is consider any item removed from the consent agenda, and there were none. And then the board president's report. I have an announcement to remember the Inspire celebration honoring retirees and teachers of the year, Thursday, April the 11th at 6 p.m. at Texas Motor Speedway. And let Jennifer know if you are planning to attend. And don't forget, Election Day is Saturday, May 4th. And superintendent's report.
Board, the only thing I have for you, if you would like to get on Wednesday night, or if you want to download it later, I'm going to give my next Facebook Live presentation Wednesday, March the 20th, this coming Wednesday at 6:30. Folks, it's a one-item issue. It's just talking to parents about the choices some of our kids are making and making sure that parents know they need to be checking up on their kiddos and always know exactly what we're doing and what we've got in our backpacks and what choices are being made. And so we're going to talk about that, just kind of following the letter that I sent out to all parents before spring break. Mrs. Kopp, that's all I have.
Move.